Wow, what a big question first off, because that one's creating so much debate online. The ones that will be disrupted the fastest will probably be e-commerce. There's 4 KPIs that I like to look at.
So how do we actually write for LLMs versus writing for Google algorithms?
LLMs don't have those spam filters yet. That's why LLMs are easier to spam. So if you're a brand that is heavily leveraged on paid search, you have got a real risky future. SEO is pattern matching. Well, actually, LLM isn't about pattern matching. LLM's breaking the original conversation apart and then trying to find patterns. How are they going to deal if one day Google says, right now, we're going to become the new ChatGPT, switch on AI mode, completely integrate search? If you're not in those answers, that disrupts your whole business model overnight. Semantic triple is a really boring way to write. Mutual information is all about reducing the ambiguity. A lot of SEOs don't want to hear it. You can boil effectiveness in natural language processing down to reducing the ambiguity around your message. Nobody really wants to hear that their industry is burning down around them.
Breaking news.
Odys is selling 86% of their inventory to over 40,000 verified buyers, and most of it are instant sales. Are you sitting on a premium H domain? Sign up for Odys Marketplace right now and wait for your check. Hello, this is Odys Podcast, and we're at the Masterminders conference in Manchester. My guest today is Andrew Holland, Director of SEO at JBH, and a published author and international speaker with over 17 years of experience in SEO. Thank you so much for coming, Andrew.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we're going to talk today about GEO and how AI is reshaping SEO and why GEO matters for visibility. So can you actually tell us, how is GEO different from SEO?
Wow, what a big question first off, because that one's creating so much debate online. So GEO, or Generative Engine Optimization, okay, the tag came because there's a VC fund in the States. I can never pronounce the gentleman's name who runs it, but he's a very famous tech investor. And his staff wrote an article about Generative Engine Optimization. So that's where the tag of GEO came about. But I think it's a very valid tag. So Generative Engine Optimization, as far as I'm concerned, is optimizing brands and websites for increased visibility within large language models or generative engines. So that's it. So you've got SEO is search engine optimization for search engines, and generative engine GEO, or generative engine optimization, is optimizing websites for discovery in large language models. So that's the difference. It's the location is the difference of what you're optimizing for, and the two things are very different in approach and tactics. There is overlap. There is very much a case of the skill sets align, but to rank in large language models is very different than definitely trying to rank in search engine optimization. And because of that, I think it's important that we have this classifier. I know there's a huge push by SEOs to say, no, it's just the same as SEO.
Exactly. Everybody's, like, a lot of people are saying it's the same.
Exactly. And it isn't. When you get into the weeds, when you go into the details granularly and you start examining results, specific results, and looking at how the technology works, it's very different. So because it has so many differences, it needs to be a different genre. And also, having the tag of GEO helps brands to understand, because the reality is you can have a fantastic visibility in search, in general Google or Bing search, and have no or terrible visibility in large language models for the things that would matter to you. So that's why the classifier is good of separating them, because a brand who's got a good SEO might also think, well, what do I need? I need general engine optimization now. I need to go after the AI. And let's face it, brands need, or businesses need, something that they can buy. And many people, the SEO industry has a tarnished reputation by many people. Many people have been stung. I think this is a great way to pivot. I also think the future could be more GEO than SEO based. And that means that we've got an industry we can go towards. So I think saying it's SEO is a real oversimplification by people. And I don't think the people saying that understand it. And I think largely that's because SEOs as a community tend to think very rigidly. No one likes change. And SEOs generally don't tend to think divergently. Most SEOs I know are convergent thinkers. It's like X equals Y. Input X equals input Y. Whereas large language models are divergent by nature of how they work, and it means that SEOs have to think divergently. And I think maybe there's some reluctance here, and also a reluctance about learning something else. Nobody really wants to go and reinvent themselves. But unfortunately, we don't control the market. Now, I might be wrong on all this. GEO might never achieve. Someone might call it AI SEO. It might stay as SEO. But that still doesn't mean that you're not optimizing for large language models.
Yeah.
And that's a separator, who you optimize for. The tag, the name, I think is really useful, really specific and relevant. But in actual fact is you're optimizing for large language models rather than search engines. And that's the difference.
So what would you say is the biggest misconception SEOs have about GEO?
Keywords. It's the biggest one. So in GEO, large language models, there is not keywords. In fact, it exists around something called CIS, which is conversational information seeking. Now, I didn't invent that term. That term's been around for some time, and it's also how chatbots use. We've all been using AI chatbots for many years now. You go to the bank, I remember saying, I want to speak to a human, because you get fed up with the bank's chatbot. And all LLMs are is a vastly more modernized version of that. Now, the key is the CIS, the conversational information seeking. Keywords largely work by pattern matching. So what happens with SEO? If you were to really dumb SEO down, you've got authority signals, and then you've got pattern matching. So what they do is they type in a keyword into the search engine, and the search engine has to bring back the document which matches the patterns and also is the most authoritative search. That's a really dumbed down version of that. Okay. Large language models do things differently. When you type in a conversation, you type in conversationally. When you actually you speak in conversationally. And largely, you're not after a piece of information. You're having a conversation not just about information, about getting something done or achieving to solve a problem. So you have a conversation, and the language models, they do a couple of different crazy things. So first of all, if the phrase, the prompt isn't detailed enough, they'll expand it. If it's too expanded, they will deconstruct it. And also they do what's called fan-out queries. So they will take multiple queries and change those. So in actual fact, that first prompt, which is the traditional keyword, as you say, gets altered. It gets morphed from its original format into various different formats and searches. So that's the fundamental difference. So SEO is pattern matching. Well, actually, LLM isn't about pattern matching. LLM's breaking the original conversation apart and then trying to find patterns. So from an SEO, that's a very different model to work on. And also, in addition, they don't use authority as a model. They use search engines, they leverage them, they leverage their own internal data, but authority regarding links is not something they use or think of. So there's lots of different signal mechanisms. So you're talking a very different beast.
What signals are important for GEO?
Okay, well, it depends on the model. Each one's different as well, okay? But generally, so the way that it really works is something called information entropy or entropy. I never know how to pronounce that word. Okay, so what that is, it's about reducing signal noise. And signal noise comes in a wide variety of things, but systems, natural language processing relies on something called mutual information to reduce the ambiguity of a message. So it's looking for multiple signals, that be mentions of brand, so brand signals, a mention of a reliable brand. It could be looking for signals such as reviews. It could be looking for things like Trustpilot reviews, star reviews. It could be looking at your Google My Business profile. It could be looking at the content of your website. It could be looking at the fact you've been mentioned in relation to your product on a high authority website. So there's lots of different signals, but generally speaking, you can boil effectiveness in natural language processing down to reducing the ambiguity around your message. So if you want to be known for something, you've got to help the search engine, or say the NLP, the LLMs, you've got to help them to understand that as easily as possible. So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Okay, so if I was a restaurant in Rome and I had fantastic views, I would need to tell that to the LLM models as best as I can. How would I do that? Okay, well, first of all, websites. The website needs to have the views. My social needs to have the views. I would actually like to be in a list post of the restaurants in Rome with the best views. That would make sense. I would like to be mentioned in TikTok videos as having the best views. On my website, I would talk about having the best views in Rome. And that's how you would increase. So when the LLM is looking for a restaurant near the Colosseum with the best views, with great views, I would be referencing the location, the fact I'm near the Colosseum. I would be referencing the views. I would also be showing the views and also giving the distinction that, and also I would be linking out to any resources that said I was one of the best restaurants with the best views in Rome. So that all that together provides mutual information to LLMs in multiple formats that they can use. And that's what they're looking for, depending on what the query was. And the query might be, in the prompt engines, I've just left the Colosseum in Rome, I'm hungry, I'm looking for restaurants nearby with great views, list me some. And that might be the type of conversational search you have. Rather than going to Google Maps and having to click through, you just want a list of 4 restaurants near you around where your location is. And straight away, you find a location. And if the LLM's got enough mutual information, it will suggest you. And that's how it works.
And so how are different LLMs different? So what signals are important, let's say, for ChatGPT versus Claude versus Perplexity?
Well, now you're getting really granular. Okay, so ultimately, in reality, they all work on the same thing, the same model. They have tweaks. So we know that ChatGPT is using Bing. We know that Google is using, the Gemini, Google AI, Mood is using Google. They're not using Bing's database. We know that OpenAI is making partnerships with different brands and publishers. So those signals are going to change. So if I wanted to rank in an LLM, an OpenAI, and ChatGPT, I would obviously be looking at their publishing list and who's there, because that would be a good source of information for them. It's different with Google and different Google search and Claude. They've all got their own things. What I think for a brand, that gets really complicated, because rather than trying to rank in a certain LLM, you should be thinking about that same message, how to increase the message and reduce the noise around your message. So whatever you want to be known as, whatever your business attributes are, whatever your product attributes are, whatever your positioning is, that's the thing that you need to be hammering home in your brand marketing, your publicity, your links, your sources where you're mentioned. You want to have all that, your citations, all those things you want to be, going double down. And that's really turning SEO into a brand marketing. So GEO is an extension of brand marketing, really. And it's also an extension of sales activation. It's an extension of a lot of things. But with GEO, what you're really doing is looking at what your business is, what it does, the business proposition, and making a lot of noise about that. The more noise you can make about your proposition and points, the better. So for reviews, another example. So, we know reviews for some businesses are going to matter. We know that LLMs will hook on those reviews. They're a form of structured information, structured content, structured data they can hook on. Well, if I was a small business, and I worked in an accounting business and I wanted more small business customers, I would ensure that I have a review process. So the review process will directly influence the LLMs, because if anyone's looking for types and I'm looking for a good accountant and, who's got some good reviews, you're in the process. So the process there, the optimization, is having a review optimization process to generate more reviews. That's the optimization there. So that's what I think business should do. Not worry too much about the specific LLM, but actually double down on the things that matter from a marketing perspective, which will filter into the LLMs.
So how do we actually write for LLMs versus writing for Google algorithm? Is there a difference?
Wow, that's a deep question. Okay, so yes and no. So essentially, Google's evolved. So Google went to an embeddings-based classifier some time ago, and we saw that, and many people saw results change, and everyone's like, Google's broken, but it wasn't. They're changing the way they do things, and they use a vector embedding database, and a lot of this is spoken online. It's very deep, technically worded things. You talk about things like embedding chunks. There's a lot of science behind how to write online now. essentially, there's a large bit of mirroring there in terms of how you write. So you write semantically for discovery. So that's not changed. That's no different between writing for GEO or writing for SEO. However, what you write is different. So structuring things, making them semantically right, having headers, having the right body content under there, making that tight. We talk about passage weighting, making sure the first sentence contains things relevant to the things you want to be ranking for.
Semantic triples.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And in fact, semantic triples are baby talk, I'll be honest with you. So semantic triples, SVO, subject, verb, or verb, object, are one of the things that you're hearing everyone talk about. There are far more ways to construct sentences in natural language processes than that. In fact, there are around 8 construction methods around sentences that you can use to enhance discovery by natural language processing. And there's a reason behind that. Natural language processing was trained on some of the best writing in the world, the best grammar. It understands grammar far better than we do. It's been trained on it. So just that subject, verb, object, that SVO, that semantic triple is a really boring way to write.
It is.
It's terrible. But you don't need to write.
Simple and basic.
Exactly. You don't need to write. So for example, as a technique for you, so in a sentence, you want to keep perhaps the key point to the end and build up to it. And that helps the machine learning to understand exactly what you have and to become more certain about what this sentence is about. So for writing, it is a sentence by sentence thing. It's a very scientific thing. Now that's where it departs. Okay, so there is similarity there. So you're writing for search in a very similar way. If you write well for search, which is in a neuro-linguistic programming fashion to optimize for embeddings, to optimize for natural language processing to understand it and to understand it easily, that's the same. But what you put in to the writing is different. So that's not how you write. So the how is the same. What's different is what goes in. And that's where humans have to be involved in this process. So, and it goes back to all the way back to what people are searching for and how people are searching. And that's where it differs. So if you were to write for natural language processing, you have to understand about your business's positioning, because your positioning is key to matching the problems that people are typing in to LLMs to solve. And that's a big thing to do with information theory. There's a lot of depth in there that we could go and talk about, lots of angles. But ultimately, what it gets written inside those, we call them blocks. So I call them information packages. So if you can break a website or a landing page or a page up into what they call information packages. An information package could be the headline, it could be the subheader, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, your header plus a paragraph. They're all packages on your page. That's how you optimize for LLMs. You optimize those packages, you use embedding-based technology. You can help with that. You can help to write better. That's the same for SEO and LLMs. The difference with LLMs is what goes into each package. And what goes into each package depends very much on what you want to be referenced in the LLMs for, and also if that matches the consumer, which goes again back to the cafe in Rome. I would ensure that if my restaurant had good views, there was an information package on the website or even an entire page related to the views. I would have that certainly on the landing page in a little package. And what that does, that's the positioning. My positioning is the views. My positioning is the Italian food. My positioning is the wine. Those are the things that people might be looking for with LLMs. A good restaurant in Rome that serves great wine. That's different than someone looking for a good restaurant in Rome that has great views. But if you want to be matched with as many different options, you have to look at your positioning and match that. So essentially, writing for them is both the same, but what goes into the information packages is where the difference is.
Okay. And you mentioned mutual information as one of the core GEO's principles. Can you tell us about it and how one can leverage it?
So signal noise. So mutual information is all about reducing the ambiguity of the message. So if you go back through to let's take World War II. Okay, we're going back in time. So World War II, it's the darkest eras of Europe, and there's wars in the Pacific. And what happens is there's messages being sent between armed forces, isn't there? And those messages were coded. Now, if you could intercept those codes and that message and decode the message, you had what they would call intelligence. My background's in police intelligence and stuff, so I kind of have a view on this as different than people. So you have this information. How much information is in there will depend on whether you send a fleet to a certain location or whether you go and defend Pearl Harbor and so forth. And the reality is that that's what this natural language processing is trying to do, to try and reduce the signal noise so it figures out the message. Our job is to help natural language processing to figure the message out that we're trying to tell. So we don't want to code it. We want to uncode it for discovery. So we want to make it really simple. So if you think about not doing this, is making it hard. It's like making the machine break the code. What we're actually trying to do is give an uncoded message, a message that they can understand. And mutual information is about doubling down on those sources as much as possible to reduce that ambiguity. Now, at this moment, the different models use different signals. You know, TikTok uses one signal, Facebook uses, but as we move into this general AI world, what you'll find is the same principles on TikTok and Facebook and Snapchat and Google and OpenAI. The same things work. It's called mutual information. All products of natural language process rely on reducing the signal noise and increasing the mutual information. So the machine is more certain that business A is a match to that fan out query, or business B is a match to the other query, and so forth and so forth. So you've got to give the machines more information. So giving another example, modern day example, expired domains. Okay, so expired domains, a subject you guys know about. And so expired domains, right, is a form of mutual information. And in a highly competitive environment, that mutual information to the search engines can be leveraged. And that's no different than probably the LLMs as well. It's a different type. That mutual information for search engines will potentially feed back into the LLMs who are then crawling the search engines. So the idea is that you can give mutual information. And that's how SEO works with LLMs. Yes, what you do with the search engine optimization is giving the LLMs a big, massive signal of mutual information. So SEO does feed into the LLMs. It definitely does. And that's a type of mutual information. Links are a type of mutual information. Digital PR is a type of mutual information. Reviews are a type of mutual information. And if you get as much mutual information as possible, that's the battle you're in. And that's really largely how search engines work anyway. But LLMs definitely need those things.
Okay, so you can use expired domains for GEO.
Well, you can incidentally. So expired domain. So if you're ranking, for example, let's say an LM, and I've never done these searches, so I don't know, but LM lists me the best, iGaming platforms for X, Y, Z, and someone's looking for something. And what happens is they'll go to search engines to find information. Well, that's fueling. So if you expired domain process, expired domains, links, all these things are a form of mutual information. Some work more effective than others. Some depend where you get them from, and so forth and that's a quality of the mutual information. So that's the thing. So yes, it will incidentally work in SEO. What works for SEO will feed into LLMs as well. In certain niches, that will be more. In certain sectors and results, that will be less. It very much depends on the large language models training around the subject. So an LLM or GEO, LLM will need to go and find external information when it doesn't have enough information in its own training data to answer it, or where it feels that having external information will help to reduce that ambiguity of what they're trying to say. So they might go and find backup information as well.
Okay, and you called GEO a tech war where Google risks becoming next Yahoo. And according to the recent study by SEMrush, actually AI searches will surpass traditional organic search by early 2028. And on top of that, Apple reportedly is exploring also integrating Claude and Perplexity into Safari. What does that mean for businesses who build their entire marketing strategy around Google?
Wow. Okay, that's a deep question. No, I get a lot of hate online because at the moment, because like people have followed me for years.
Really?
I get loads of hate online at the moment. So
for what?
Because I'm saying that GEO is where to go. And the reason why I'm saying I get tons.
For that?
Yeah, a lot of SEOs don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that, and nobody really wants to hear that their industry is burning down around them because that creates panic. And I get that, by the way, but I'm not saying these things because I want to be the bad guy of information. So if we go back to, so this is a deep subject. We've got enough time, haven't we, to cover this? So it's a deep subject. So what we're going to talk about is information theory. So there's a fantastic study or theory called information foraging theory. And that was started by a guy called Stuart Claude and Peter Peril, I never pronounced his name right, who wrote this big theory. And information theory and foraging theory has been around for an awful long time. It's been around for 20 or so years, if not 30 years. And it's a study of how we consume information in the web, in an online environment, okay? And with it, it talks about lots of different things. But the first thing is it talks about problem solving. We go to the internet to solve our problems. Okay, sometimes we go because we're bored, but that's a problem, you know, and and there's lots of different emotional states we go into, but generally speaking, we go to the internet to solve a problem. Now, sometimes that will be just a knowledge problem we need, and they call that the knowledge space. Now, human beings throughout history have needed knowledge to solve their problems, and we've been doing this before computers came along. And what happens when you've got what they call an ill-structured problem? So a structured problem would be like a puzzle or game, you know the rules. An ill-structured problem would be, choosing what weight loss drug to take. That's an ill-structured problem. You don't know. So you go to search engines in what's called the knowledge search. So in the real realms, we enter what theorists call the problem space. I know it's getting geeky. So we call this the problem space. And the problem space had a start space or start state and a goal state. So if you think about any problem whatsoever, you have a start state, okay? The start state is somebody thinking about having one of these popular weight loss drugs. They start state there and they don't know anything about them. Well, to get to the goal of having a weight loss goal and picking one, they've got to go and find information. Now, for the last 26 years or more, we've all gone to Google to find information. And that's been a fine thing. Publishers have been rewarded in the ecology of the web has happened. Now, LLMs do this for us. They organize the space, the problem space, and take care of knowledge information and knowledge search. So someone starting off there, I'm not sure about the best weight loss drug, give me the pros and cons of those things. What ends up happening is the LLM will completely produce that. You could go and deep research it and produce a massive report to give you everything you ever needed to know. That is not just quicker, it's not just more efficient cognitively, because information foraging theory is about us making the best use of our cognitive resources, because brains consume calories and when we want to make the best choices. That radically transforms online human problem solving. So because you go from having a situation where you used to have to go and click on multiple websites and probably take you weeks to having the answer in seconds and what they call a good enough answer, something called satisficing. So satisficing is an economics term which we developed years ago, which combines, suffice and satisfy. And what it means is generally we're happy with information that's good enough. We're happy with products or businesses which are good enough. Not necessarily the best, because finding the best takes us more money, more resources, more time. We just don't want the worst. So we don't want the worst. We just want to have enough to make a decision as quickly as possible. And what LLMs do is they get the knowledge out there, organize it for us in split seconds, take a task which took a long time to search to do, and you had to read through and click a lot, and it gives you all that information straight away. And that's where the problem lies, and this is where the big apocalypse could happen. Because when nobody is using search engines to find information, first of all, Google's paid search model and display model starts to stuff a massive revenue. They stuff huge issues. The second thing is people aren't clicking on brands or business, not searching enough. They have their answers there, and when they've got their answers there, then they can go on a different knowledge search. Now, the good news for businesses is that means that the buyer journey is faster. So a buyer journey typically can take anything between 12 months from B2B to a couple of weeks in certain sectors to instantaneously in others. What it does is it compresses the buyer journey. It takes somebody from that start state to that goal state quicker. What we've done is squashed it down by reducing the need to have that knowledge search. The problem for brands how do I get discovered then? So if they've been featured in that knowledge search, or if they're not featured in that knowledge search or the brand that mentioned, how do we get discovered? And that's the big danger for brands in terms of when Google, and this is the existential threat that Google faces, this is the blockbusters Netflix situation. So
yes,
it is. So Google, quite rightly, so imagine Google as the Blockbusters, a video store. But this time Blockbusters has said, do you know what? There's something involved in this streaming videos. We're going to start our platform when Netflix was just starting. That's where we're at. So Blockbusters have decided, seen Netflix starting to move into the streaming space from the online rental business to no late fees to now they're thinking we need to act now. So you've got two players in the marketplace that are acting at the same time. So if that had happened years ago, we might have two dominant streaming platforms. Blockbusters and Netflix might both be dominant still. And that would make sense. But now Google very smartly has said, right, we need to act. So they've created Gemini, AI overviews, AI mode, and so forth.
Yes.
So they know the problem. They've got loads of other problems, like how do we monetize this? How do we get off paid search? What happens to paid search? OpenAI has the advantage that they don't care about any of those things. This is the issue. So they can continue to build the best source of information gathering there is and not have to worry about the paid solution because they're not profitable anyway. So they're just funded by VC funds. They've had 40 billion early this year. They're valued at 300 billion. They're plugged into a lot of different things. They don't have the same business issues that Google does. And that's why this could happen. Google could really mess this up. They don't have a great understanding of launching products. Google Plus was a disaster. Google Stadia, disaster. Okay, there's Google Glasses, disaster. Yeah. They've launched a lot of failed products. Yes, they've got a lot of technical products. Yes, they're in the fantastic best position to make this work. But unfortunately, they also have shareholders and monetization issues, and they haven't got the single couple of founders like Sam Altman from OpenAI. So they've got this lean model, developers building this product, and they're not quite sure how it's going to impact everywhere and how to monetize it. Google has this other model. And for businesses moving forward, this is the big disruption. How are they going to deal if one day Google says, right now, we're going to become the new ChatGPT, switch on AI mode, completely integrate search? If you're not in those answers, that disrupts your whole business model overnight.
Absolutely.
And if Google don't do it well, people will flood to OpenAI. They're flooding now rapidly. It's 1% of the market, but loads of people are using ChatGPT, not just to search for other things. So they've got a real foothold. So right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but this is an existential threat to Google's future. They know it. They act it, and their share prices are falling lots and lots. They were down 14% this month alone, which is billions of revenue gone, billions of value gone. So there's lots of problems inside Google. For us as SEOs or GEOs or whatever you want to call us, there's a load of opportunity. And that's the key. That's why you can't bury your head in this. You've got to go at it and go and grab this and understand the market.
Absolutely.
And businesses do as well.
So actually, do you think paid ads will eventually appear in AI searches? Google has already announced like they will appear in AI overviews, and are we just delaying the inevitable?
It's got a lot of problems with it. So essentially, there's two models that clash there. So so Gemini now is a subscription model. It is. It's already, you have to pay user. The free version just disappears after about 2 searches. So it's virtually unusable as a free version. As a paid version, it's nowhere near as good as ChatGPT in my personal viewpoint. So OpenAI have got a paid version, but it's not profitable because of all the data costs. None of these models are profitable. Google has a huge amount of revenue, billions, 260 billion from paid search. So they've got to integrate paid ads somehow into it. But the problem is if OpenAI continues to say, we're not bothered about making a profit for a very, very long time, if their investors are happy with that, like Amazon's investors were, what they'll do is continue to build the best, cleanest interface, which is going to be ad-free, which will attract people. And this is Google's challenge. They can introduce ads. They all can. But I don't think that's where OpenAI are heading, to an ad-based model yet. And if they do that and they keep it clean and easy and there's less noise and the results are better, this is again an issue with Google. It didn't have that problem with Bing. Bing had ads and everything else was just a copy of Google in many ways. But now Google's got a lot of issues that they need to solve and resolve. And I'm not convinced the models match.
Yeah, so actually it sounds like we're moving towards like a discovery based models. So what does that mean for marketing teams where the subscription, it's a subscription based discovery model? Like what does that mean?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge for marketing teams. So first of all, what you also need to understand for any marketing team working out there, this is a choice. Okay, there's still huge amounts of organic search. So right now, what I say to people is you need what I would call a bothism approach. You need to do GEO and SEO. You need to understand how your brand is showing up in GEO and llms. You need to understand how your brand is showing up in SEO. There are loads of businesses that don't invest in SEO. Loads, millions upon millions of businesses who don't invest in SEO, who can't understand it, can't understand how to monetize it, don't understand the ROI aspect of it, who can't logistics. So they just spend on paid ads. They're the worst people. They're the worst. They are in danger. If you're
this is the biggest danger.
Yeah. So if you're a brand that is heavily leveraged on paid search, you have got a real risky future. And for you need to be taking action. I would straight away go and break out the emergency funds, invest in SEO, invest in LM, GEO, and then I would then start really thinking about your positioning. If you generate most of your revenue from paid search, and a lot do, a hell of a lot do.
Yeah.
So I think where we're at now is the issue where you have to invest in both for now to see how it goes. And if you're a paid search business, you've got problems. And for marketers and for brand marketers thinking about your message, what I would suggest is you look at this to say is almost like self-defense. So none of us know what the future is going to be. The future is unknown. Well, what we can know is the likely possible outcomes of this path. And the likely possible outcomes of this path, if you look at information theory, the science, the trends, the data, the things, studies from Hrefs, the likely possibility is that LLM AI search is going to be the most dominant search in the world.
Yeah.
And one of those platforms doesn't use paid ads. And that's the reality of it. And if that platform wins the dominance war, you have not got that placement there. And I think that OpenAI, I believe my money is on them winning.
Yeah.
Which is contrary to a lot of opinions, but my money is on them winning. And I think you're going to see the blockbusters Netflix of the search era, and Google will be it won't vanish because it's got tons of products. It will always be there. They're under tremendous issues legally, where they're being investigated by Europe, they're being investigated by the US, where there's court cases going on, where there's talk about breaking their products apart.
Yes.
And that will be another nail on the coffin for them and their monopoly. So my money right now is on OpenAI to win this battle. And if you aren't figuring out how to get your brand there now, don't when it happens, when the switch gets flicked by Google and they do something that causes OpenAI to surge in usage. Now, I'll tell you why Google became so big, and people don't know this. Is that Yahoo had Google as their search operator, their SEO engine, basically. The people searched on Google whilst in Yahoo, and they had that. And as a result, that's what surged Google as one of the biggest platforms. The fact that they were embedded inside Yahoo as their search engine, so to speak. Eventually, Yahoo separated around that, and we know what happened to Yahoo.
Yes.
But it was their positioning there that worked. And the same thing with OpenAI. They become embedded in products and services and differences.
Yes.
They will surge. And the other thing is if Gemini and Google, and it's messy, even talking about what to use, Google or Gemini, you don't know. It's a real issue you have. So as far as I'm concerned, the problems exist really now for Google. They've got all the problems OpenAI hasn't. So, but if you're a brand, you need to take this seriously. You need to start thinking of the both-of-them approach, and especially if you're leveraged on paid search, get yourself off that hook or start. This is emergency time for businesses. The time to act is right now.
Just transfer that money you're spending on paid search into GEO and
or get investments, because the paid search, if paid search is successful, this is the thing that people don't understand. You have a ROAS, return on ad spend.
Yes.
So you know how much money you're making. Now, generally that's actually poorly measured because it should be profit on ad spend. Okay, but you know the return you're getting. You know your profit you're getting if you work it out. That money needs to be coming into your SEO and LLM strategy straight away, or go and find the money, go and borrow it, go and cut somewhere else. You need to look at how you're acquiring customers and think about the future.
So actually, what types of content, like text, video, Q&As, work best for GEO, like especially in competitive niches?
That's a really because it's a challenge. So for the content side, okay, so the content side is really ongoing conversation, because a lot of people talk about blocking LLMs to scroll their content. So publishers, there's no reward really at the moment. And that's a huge mod. So I think if we can detach that with a little module and a spaceshift going up, we can detach the content side for a second. What we need to talk about is the information. So information is very different than content. Content can be lots of different forms. Information is what people need to be supplying in relation to the problems someone solves. So bear in mind, you've decoupled information in terms of, I'd say, decoupled the knowledge base. Okay. So the knowledge of what's the best weight loss jab to use, what's the best, different things is any informational search they can answer straight away in the LLMs. But once you've got that information, then you need to decide whether or not you're going to solve the problem for yourself or you need external help. And that's where you need to think about your external help. So for most brands and businesses, especially in competitive niches, it's talking about their products and services in ways that LLMs can reference. And it's that information, it's that positioning, talking about your positioning, talking about your products and services, and putting them in those information packages in a way that, one, can be understood by natural language processing, but also represents the things. So for example, let's say you've got a legal issue. I try and cue these into examples. It's the best way. Let's say you've got a legal issue. You've got an employment issue. Alex, don't come after me. So let's say you had an issue with your employer, and right now you need to seek some employment advice. So what might happen? You might go and Google the law. Can an employer do this? Can an employer say this to me? You need to go and understand the law. At that point, now you have knowledge. You have knowledge about the law, so you have knowledge about your rights, and you make a decision. Should I then go and take action? And do I do this myself? Do I go and represent myself? Try and do this myself? Probably not. But then you make the decision to find legal advice. Now, the legal advice you find will depend on what kind of legal advice you need, where your location is, whether you want to have it on the phone, all those different things are business positioning. So if you want to find a solicitor in Poland near to where you live, that's what you might say. I need to find a solicitor in Poland near to my house, about, within the next couple miles from my house, one that does free telephone conversations, free telephone consultations, which has got good reviews and deals with this particular employment matter. It goes off and finds that for you, and it brings those results. Well, if you're not in Poland or you're not close to where you live, you can't change that fact, no. Okay? But it might bring back a free telephone advice legal company that specializes in that. And it'll say, yeah, this company isn't near you, but it does offer free telephone advice. And also it's a free consultation, and they specialize in this type of thing. So that's a positioning angle. So whatever your positioning is for your products and services, you need to make sure that's in the copy and your website. And that's what you need to be talking about.
And it can take different form.
Lots of different forms: reviews, phone numbers, your location, your address, your about page, and your content. So, for example, I did an article yesterday. Actually, it was published, an ultimate guide to GEO. It's on my LinkedIn newsletter. And one of the examples I give is a theatre in London. So the prompt is, I'm heading down to London. I'm going to see Les Miserables. I need to find somewhere options for dining before or after the show. Now, what it does is it immediately understands, because it knows where Les Miserables is as a theatre. It knows which theatre it is. I don't need to tell it that. It has that in its training data. And therefore, it's got that address. And it pulled up a website, that is a restaurant that had got restaurants near XYZ location, the XYZ theatre, and named it. They created a blog post on their website. And the blog post title, Restaurant Near, and it was a theatre name, and it was their single restaurant. You could only book their restaurants. Very clever, going after the long tail of SEO, which they did do. Well, and actually that's a great example of a piece that matches both SEO and also LLMs, because the LLM brought it back because it found it with a search, which was very long tail. Restaurants in the theatre district are near this thing, and it found it and hooked onto it and grabbed it. So what that was a blog post. Nothing else. It was this very specific blog post. And that's another way, that's an example of how you could optimize a website.
And how do you eliminate signal noise in GEO to ensure AI bot picks your content over your competitors?
Specificity. I can't even pronounce specificity. I think I can't even pronounce it, but you have to be clear, and that's part of how you write things. So you talk about the semantic triples. That's an example. The others are the 8 construction methods that you can use for sentences that will help to there's various clefs and things like that where you can do even passive voice choices, a way you can optimize a sentence for LLMs. So there's lots of ways you do that, but one is clarity. The first main thing is clarity. You have to be clear on your positioning, clear on your message, and make it simple. So keeping sentences shorter is ideal, ensuring that you link back to the original topic on the page is important. Make sure the information package is correct. Make sure that links back to what the message is. So if you're a restaurateur, let's say you're a solicitor in Manchester. Well, if you're a solicitor in Manchester, it'll need to have things in there related to what you solve and what's related to a solicitor in Manchester. The location's going to need to be you're going to have a bit about location. So specificity, clarity is how you reduce it, and then offsite signals as well. So offsite signals matter. The media mentions, the publicity, links can be a signal for the search engine, which LLMs go and take from anyway. So there's lots of things you do. Yes, that's why SEO still is a major part.
Yeah,
it still is a major part. No one's denying it, but it's not just the only part. But yeah, those mutual signals, create as much information as you can about your brand or your business related to the services or products you sell or your area of expertise. That's the thing. Be the drum with the most noise. That's the idea.
And is that same advice applying to competitive verticals like crypto, iGaming, supplements?
Yeah. So they're competitive industries. So the thing I was talking to Alex earlier today. So the thing with competitive industries is sources of mutual information can make a difference to you. And so we talk about expired domains. And I'm well aware that people buy links, and Google knows everyone buys links and expired domains. In many competitive industries, that is the way to go. Because that's a source. And those links expire, they go out. So link buying, all these mutual signals, the way to think about it is like a sieve. So you've got a sieve here. This is your mutual information. You're pouring it in, it leaks out to the bottom. Some of it, maybe if you thicker liquids, or things like, soups, heavier soups with chunks in there, they stay in the sieve a little bit longer. That's the reality of it. That's the way to think of it. You're always going to leak things out of the bucket. And probably a bucket's the best analogy. You are going with holes in it. You're going to leak stuff. So you have to keep refilling it and refilling and refilling it. Google, as a search engine, is designed and seeks out ways to eliminate SEO's attempts at manipulating the mutual information. That's what Google as a tool does. That's what SEOs have tried to manipulate the mutual information they give. LLMs don't have those spam filters yet. That's why LLMs are easier to spam and easier to manipulate, because they don't have those filters, whereas search engines do, which is why LLMs might rely on search engines more and more in the future, because there's less spam, or they might introduce spam filters themselves somehow. But it's all about keep on refilling those signals in there. And in competitive niches, you need more material, you need more mutual signals. And sometimes, it'd be the easiest thing in the world, say, go get digital PR. Digital PR in some gambling niches is ridiculously hard. It's very, very hard. You need other things. So you have to talk about effectiveness and efficiency in what you do, but you've constantly got to be pouring those things in. You've got to be pouring the mutual information in, because expect it to leak.
Traditional SEO can show organic traffic and conversions, but what about actually AI search? How do we track?
Well, you can. It's a very complicated thing. This is so, and I think we overcomplicate. Yeah, you should be looking at metrics within your GA4 and your Search Console. Okay, you should do, because we know it's in there, and you can use things. You can filter for regex to understand conversational terms, and GA4 can see your referrals from and things. But generally speaking, I think the simplification is this: there's 4 KPIs that I like to look at.
What are your favorites?
Okay, so share of search is one. So share of brand search. So that's the amount of people searching for your brand in compared to your competitors. And that's not an SEO metric. That's actually a brand marketing metric created by a gentleman called Les Burnett, who's known as the godfather of marketing effectiveness. So somebody who's a media planner, spent an awful lot for brands on marketing and worked for some of the most prestigious agencies. He created share of search as a very, very quick model to understand how a brand was performing. And what they found is that share of search as a model, so the more people searching for your brand, has an 85% efficiency rate to the reality of growth of your business. So if you've got an increase of share of search related to your competitors because you're taking some of their market share, someone's searching for you more, then you have an 85% chance that your market share is going to increase. That's because people search for things that they're more interested in buying in the future or have already purchased already. So that's what share of search is. So if you've got an increase of share of search, you should be fine. And that's the cool thing about LLMs, because not always do they include a link. Sometimes they just reference your brand.
Yes,
so you have to
just mention.
That's it. So very often what you'll end up doing is having to go into a new tab to search for, just once you get the result, then open up your browser and then search. So brand share of search is important for that. Now, the other thing is buyer intent search. That's in your search console. If you know what your buyer intent search is and you can see that and you can filter that, and very often, and although search console doesn't give you that now, you can take that data out your spreadsheets, shove it in AI, and then figure out your levels of intent of your clicks. So brand intent search clicks is another thing that matters. So I think those are the two metrics there: share of search, and also the amount of buyer intent clicks that you're getting, the amount of brand search, the amount of brand clicks you're getting, the amount of buyer intent clicks. And if they're going up, you know that you are likely to increase sales. So I think that's the easiest metric for us to go after right now. I think there's danger as going too granular and what's our conversion rate. And there's a load of conversations that can be had about that. Again, that's a whole subject. But if your clicks from buyer intent search are going up, you know that. If your clicks and your brand clicks are going up, you know that you're going to experience growth, and growth is good.
Okay, and actually, that study by SEMrush I mentioned earlier also shows that AI searches tend to convert better. So how do we optimize and track for these higher quality prospects when they're not clicking through the traditional funnel?
Okay, so that's like how should I put that? That's a classic example of using the data. So the reason why LLMs convert better is because of what I mentioned earlier in terms of the information
compression.
search. The compressions convert. So you've taken care of the information search. So you're not needing to click on information when you're not in the market to buy. So there's a thing about demand. So a lot of people think you can create demand. You can't. If you could create demand, a Christmas tree website that sold Christmas trees could sell them all year round. And it can't. You can't sell Christmas trees all year round, can you? It doesn't work. The growth is seasonal. You can't create demand. People are either in the market due to unmet personal demands, or they're not in the market. They're either in the market or not. When somebody is learning information, they are coming into the market. Some of that information they're not ready to buy. The reason why it works really well is because once somebody has enough information to take on a subject, to take them to find a solution, they go straight to the solution and then they go and click and they buy far quicker. So that's why conversions are quicker with LLMs or better, because you've taken care of that noise. So basically what you're doing is you're getting rid of all the noise. And if you were to do that with SEO and just look at the conversion queries, you would see how little actually is how many clicks converted. It's just a time. Most people just go and convert straight away. They've been to your website a few times, not hundreds of times and so forth. Every search is different, but people will be surprised at the data. So again, it goes back to those optimizing based on positioning. Now, there's a lot more to this, and it's bigger. And in brand marketing, you have something called category entry points. And they're basically emotional pathways when you think about buying into a product. And a lot of brand marketing does this really well. So in Britain, we had an advertisement called "Have a Break, Have a Kit Kat." So that's what they did. It's compare the meerkats we had. So that was a big advertising campaign. So when you thought about something, you use the first search engine. Whenever we think about a problem, we use our brains. Our brains are our first search engines we use. That's what brand marketing does. So you always think about your brain. You always go to this search engine first before you go to anything else. And then you go and find another search engine to use. And that's the battle, by the way. So you go to the LLMs or go to Google. That's the battle we're in. So in relation to optimization and conversions and how this works it's because the conversion funnel has been reduced in size, brands will get faster conversions and work well. That's why the data is showing so well. So you need to optimize based on your positioning. Now, the positioning is what works with these category entry points, these pathways, the circumstances when someone would have a product. So the circumstance you have to figure out as a business is, why is someone coming to our restaurant? Well, they're tourists. They're coming, we have a lot of theatre trade. Why is someone buying our dresses? Well, they're evening gowns. Well, we found out from customer surveys that people are buying them because they're going on cruises. or they're buying our dresses because they go to proms. What people like about proms, and you think about cruise ships and things like that, and you think about proms, you don't necessarily have to put cruise ships in your product copy, but it might be things like dress can be easily folded. Might be something you put in your product description that can be referenced. It might be great for prom dresses, great for use in the prom, for cruise ships. It might be you put those that'll be used and they can hook on those things. So it's all about thinking about where your products are being used, how your buyers are coming into the market, how they're thinking about them. That's a whole science called category entry points. That's a big thing. CEPs are a massive study. It's a big, huge marketing. Millions of pounds are spent on CEP development by brand marketing over the years. And that's essentially what brand marketing does. It thinks about your positioning, about things, and thinks about how you might enter the marketplace. And LLMs has got to align with that. And brands need to think more about their consumers, about how they come into the market and why are they buying their products, and then match their website and their positioning to that premise.
So how do you actually pitch geo to stakeholders who don't necessarily see the value or have troubles tracking?
I think they all are in at the moment. I don't think it's, and that's another good thing, by the way, it's an easy pitch. So when every brand is talking about AI. So we're not talking about something anyone's not interested in.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, there's lots of different types of SEO. So SEO for marketing managers and CFOs, we want to know where the money is.
Yes.
SEO for the board, they want to, when they're at home at night and they're using Google, using ChatGPT, they want to see their business being returned. And their question next time to the marketing department is, why aren't we in the results? I searched for us on our OpenAI and ChatGPT. We didn't show up. It's very different. So the conversations are going on in the boardroom. The sale is relatively easy, but we're in this getting ready period. And that's the cool thing right now, is because you can help your pitches. Luke, this is coming. You can see it coming. The SEMrush data says it's coming.
Yeah.
We can see it's coming. We know that this change is coming. The pitches, get ready. Do not be the person to not have the electricity when candles stop being sold. That's the kind of a likelihood of it. You're saying, get yourself ready for this. Get yourself ready. It's the equivalent of making sure you've got internet access when the video shop closes. That's what we're talking about here.
Which industries do you think will be disrupted first and fastest?
Wow, that's a good question. Oh, wow, you're on form. Okay, in truth, I think the ones that will be disrupted the fastest will probably be e-commerce.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because with e-commerce, Google's a mess.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe that OpenAI has done a deal with Shopify. Okay, so OpenAI is, once people are able to find products and services or products in e-commerce faster than meet their needs quicker and resolve those needs and those issues, and it's far less cognitive draining than using Google, the change will happen fast. Now, again, I give you an example. So an example I give, and I gave someone online the other day. So my daughter's a boxer. She's 12. She's a talented young boxer, and she's been keeping on at me wanting some new boxing gloves. I went to ChatGPT and said, and use a prompt like this. My daughter's a 12-year-old. She's a boxer. She needs some new sparring gloves. They need to be 14 ounce. Need to have a Velcro strap with them because doing the laces is a pain. So that's why it needs a Velcro strap. I said they need to be good quality for sparring, and they need to have some pink on them ideally. Okay. So off it went, did these random searches, because I used 03. That's another thing about them, which model you use changes the results as well. So I used 03 on ChatGPT, and it brought back a list of products. It brought back about 8 or 9. They were all brilliant. And one in particular stood out as the most pink glove and the highest quality. And by the way, I put the price there as well as under £100 in that prompt. So it brought this back, and now I shoved that product in Ahrefs. Didn't rank for a single keyword.
Really?
No keywords whatsoever. And I even asked it, okay, well, tell me how you gain these results. Now, it doesn't tell you, it's very dishonest. It wouldn't tell you these things. But it talked about, we've got APIs. I do a search. I have my own embedded search thing. I don't go to Google or Bing to do searches like you think I do. I use my own internal search and stuff. And it may be true. It may not be true. We don't know. We don't know how these things work. But it pulled this product. When I went into Google, I then typed in Google 14 ounce pink sparring gloves. Okay, and it came up with the first thing was a huge carousel of products. that didn't match the needs. The next thing was a list of list posts, the 10 best sparring gloves, best sparring gear, best sparring gloves. I would then have to click on all those things to try and find a product that matches. Whereas it's just ChatGPT has returned me 8 products. Each matches in my very, very specific needs. 3 of those are exactly, and 1 of those caught my eyes. And if that is applied to e-commerce and everyone else has that same experience, then e-commerce will be the first industry disruptive. And if OpenAI has made this deal with Shopify, and I'm pretty sure they have, then that will massively affect things because everybody's going to be wanting to put their APIs, connect them to ChatGPT.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the difference. When that happens, colossal change takes place in a very short period of time.
Wow.
So I think e-commerce is first. There's going to be other service-based and things. We're already using it now for service-based businesses and B2B. B2B, a very big one.
So you think after e-commerce, B2B follows?
I think it'll all follow. I think it'll be like dominoes.
Okay.
And it'll go down because every experience you have, everyone buys e-commerce goods. So the fact you're buying e-commerce goods, if everyone has an experience of e-commerce that's positive, you're more likely to use the same platform for the next experience.
Yes, yes. Okay. So what specific actions would you recommend for companies to take in the next 90 days, let's say, to gain like a geo advantage before their competitors catch?
Hire me. So that would be the quickest way to do this, to get this advantage. I think that's the reality. You're going to have to hire a specialist.
Hire a specialist.
Because, and this is the problem with the SEOs who say like, oh, GEO is not a thing. SEO, well, no, actually, what you're doing is you're telling people you're not a specialist in that marketplace as well. I'm already a very well-established SEO. I'm becoming an established GEO. I'm almost leading the pack. And I have spent 2 years analyzing this market for me to be able to give this advice. So for brands who are looking for that, I am probably one of the best places to go, but I can't serve everyone. I'm only me, you know? So that's the reality. We will see the emergence of GEO agencies. That much I'm sure. And Ryan Law from Hrefs, I think, put a post on LinkedIn saying if he was to start an agency now or advise someone, he would 100% go all in on GEO. I think that's a smart move for many agencies, but both of them still matters. You can't be a GEO agency and then ignore SEO. You have to be able to do both. So I think the reality now is you need to hire an SEO agency or SEO specialist or SEO strategist, which has got a strong background in SEO and an approvable one, while also has and is openly talking about GEO strategies and how to deliver. Get them, hire them, pay them what they want, and then you will be in a place where you will be more defended on your position. That's if also that they're not talking nonsense, which SEOs and GEOs probably will do. It's as long as they can absolutely turn around to you and tell you why this is going to work and lead you revenue and protect your company, that's what you're looking for. Knowledge, internal knowledge that you're experts that know it inside and out are able to give you that information. But you want to hire somebody, get it done now, get them brought in, start the conversations now. Do not be caught on the flat feet on this. There's the old saying, being caught on your flat feet in boxing, you get shot. I mean, I talk about boxing a fair bit on the podcast. I'll go coaching boxing in a bit as well. So the reality is if you get caught flat-footed, you will get knocked out. And that's the same thing for a business. Get in now. Get your training. This is the Rocky montage bit for a business. You know, the Rocky Balboa training montage. This is the business you're in now. Get your business fit for large language models and being ranking. It could probably disrupt your model massively. Don't get caught behind. Start preparing. Optimizing for GEO will not harm your SEO. Not optimizing GEO will harm your GEO. That's the thing.
You don't want to be chasing the trend.
Exactly, 100%.
So what's in the future of GEO in the next 2-3 years? I know it's difficult to predict. But
yeah, so there's a gentleman called Kevin Kelly who was the editor of Wired magazine. I think it's Wired magazine for years. So Kevin Kelly is a futurist and he wrote a book, and I can't remember the names now of the book, but it's the only book he's mentioned, or one of the few, so you can find it on Amazon. And that was written in 2016. And inside that book, he said by 2026, Google's main product would be an AI product, not search. So that's a fairly accurate prediction. And that's why he's a very interesting man. He's also the man that talked about having 1,000 true fans is the way to money and never worrying about money. Very clever guy. And that book's a fantastic read because it's very accurate about what's happening now. And then if you read it and reread it, you'll see how clever it was in 2016. And that's where we're heading, where the future is. The future is that AI is embedded into everything. So it's embedded into the glass. Smart glass has been built. So in terms of your windows now, we'll be able to access in the future your feed. You know, when you go into a hotel room and log into Netflix, it wasn't a thing years ago, and you put your Netflix account in the hotel room TV, you'll go up to a window wherever you sort of check your phone. You won't need a phone because you'll be constantly able to access your online by smart glass. We'll have smart mirrors. AI will be in cars. You'll be able to access ChatGPT or Gemini. It's going to be everywhere. When you're walking around, we'll be wearing wearable tech that records our entire lives for us. You'll have smart glasses. I've just got some glasses. There'll be AI-powered glasses within the next few years. I'll have a pair. It will link into everything. So the future is this totally decentralized search model. That's what's going to happen. We won't use search engines. They will exist in a form. They will certainly exist. Databases will exist. And AI will be able to access most databases independently of search. And that's what will happen. Everyone will have databases. Everyone will have this information that will supply. And then it will be all decentralized. And AI will gather information from everything. And that's the future.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be like literally the chatbots crawling the search, right? That's going to be the primary user, whereas the human user will move outside.
Yeah, we won't even think Google. People will laugh at us for Googling things. When I tell my grandkids, we used to go to a search engine, they go, what? You know, and they'll say, my kids can't understand how videos work. You know, you put videos in, into a machine, a big thing. They don't have this, they don't have that concept in their head. Even if you show them, they still don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
And that's where we're heading. We won't see this. I don't know how electricity works. I was taught at school, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I know it powers things, and that's the way people will be AI. We won't know how it really works. Some smart people will, but it'll just be everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your knowledge.
Pleasure.
This was such an exciting conversation and very timely. To keep up with the newest information, follow Andrew on LinkedIn. Contact him, subscribe to our Odys channel for more episodes like that.